All right, here we go. The family of the Ukrainian refugee killed on a Charlotte train last month is speaking out for the first time as we see more video of the horrific crime.
Right, of what happened afterwards. The newly released video shows the aftermath of the shocking attack that's now being prosecuted on the federal level.
Lucas Tomlinson joins us live with the latest. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, guys. The family of Iryna Zarutska is speaking out for the first time after the brutal murder of that 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee on a train in Charlotte. Here's the statement. We are heartbroken beyond words. Iryna came here to find peace and safety, and instead, her life was stolen from her in the most horrific way. No family should have to go through this. This could have been anyone riding the light rail that night. We are committed to making sure this never happens again. And the suspect's half-brother speaking out, telling the New York Post Decarlos Brown should not have been allowed in public. I think they could have pretty much prevented it then. I didn't even know he had mental problems. You can't just let him free, especially because of mental issues. He could do it again. President Trump's Justice Department now stepping in, bringing charges against Decarlos Brown with one count of committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. He faces a maximum sentence of life in prison or death. Here's Attorney General Pam Bondi.
We are going to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. We have taken the case because it's murder on mass transit. Progressive DAs cannot handle this case.
Here's FBI agent James Barnacle in Charlotte.
The system has failed us in this case. There is no doubt. Everyone deserves to go about their daily lives, to get to work, to get to school, just across town without the fear of being attacked. So we'll have to figure this out, right? This is not a problem the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office can solve.
And here's the video showing Iryna's entering the train and moments before she is murdered. We have received new video of the aftermath. Viewer discretion is advised. Some people have scrutinized the reaction of some of the passengers. It's not clear how much time they had to react. Some passengers are seen later in the surveillance video trying to come to Iryna's aid. And Decarlos had been arrested previously 14 times. Recall here in D.C. 2 years ago, the police chief said the average murder suspect in the nation's capital had been arrested 11 times prior to committing a homicide, guys.
Well, there's something wrong with that stat, and it's eminently correctable. Thanks, Lucas. So we find out, we see the rest of the video of how bad this was. You know, you see the freeze frame and you only can imagine. You don't have to imagine, and many of you have seen the entire thing. But you see this guy with a huge rap sheet. You see when a mayor comes out and says, this was not preventable, we can't arrest your way out of this. Yes, you can. You can arrest your way out of it and get mental health at the same time. And at the same time, this guy is also bringing up race. See, I got the white girl. So don't pretend like that's not a role in this.
So it's really hard to watch that video. It was circulating last night, and you could see her cover her mouth. Looks like she's in shock, doesn't realize maybe she had been stabbed, looks down, maybe sees the blood in front of her. But then you see the suspect walking through the train with just blood dropping all over the train and walking by people who had no idea what was going on. Then when the train doors open, the suspect gets off the train and you can see people running to the back of the train. Somehow they knew that she was injured and she died on the scene. They went to help her, though.
I've been astonished by the media coverage of it. This doesn't have to be political. This is just basic humanity. And the lack of coverage, the way that they have spent this into a racial angle, of a MAGA angle, when it's just a crime angle here, of people deserve to be safe. And the fact that people responded in such a way, Caroline Leavitt took it on straight to the media yesterday in the White House press corps, asking the people that are supposed to be representatives, why aren't you guys covering this? Watch.
The majority of the media, many outlets in this room, decided that her murder was not worth reporting on originally because it does not fit a preferred narrative. Many of the journalists in this room spilled plenty of ink trying to smear Daniel Penny for defending a subway car from a deranged lunatic in New York City, but none of those same reporters lift a finger to write stories about an actual murderer. Here's the truth that every American must know. Too many innocent people across the country continue to pay the price of the failed experiment known as cashless bail that has been championed by the Democrat Party for years.
And even his brother, even the suspect's brother, said that the release into the public by the magistrate judge after he promised to return for the hearing at a later date, he even said that his brother should have been off the streets, that cashless bail is the reason that this mentally ill ex-con went free because of cashless bail. He was schizophrenic, he was homeless, he had committed so many crimes, many of them were violent, 14 different arrests, and then he goes and he's free, and he kills this young lady.
How does this judge feel today? I hope terrible. Because the mom also came out, Ainsley, and told local TV she sought involuntary psychiatric commitment for him after he became violent with her, and they didn't get it. And his own lawyer said that this guy needs to be locked up, and they didn't get it. But the judge decides, if you sign this form and promise to come back, because they're trying to set up some psychological observation. But the problem is, he's dangerous. I'm not saying he shouldn't get, I don't care what happens to him when he's salted away. You put him in a psychiatric ward, you put him in solitary confinement. I'm not concerned about that. You know, you want to talk, that's a different story. But the first thing you have to do is, how do I keep the people safe? And then work your way backwards. Why is that hard? And I wish this was just one judge at one time in one city. But we see this over and over again in New York City. No one gets locked up. And what's the ripple effect with that? Cops say, I'm not putting my life on the line to go grab this psycho because he's going to get out later in the day. So I'm not going to do it. And you're not going to back me up if this thing goes awry? Not going to bother.
Lawrence, nobody loves you more than your mother, right? You always talk about her. So when the mother is telling the judge, please lock him up, he needs psychological help, and the brother is telling the judge, you need to lock him up, why don't these judges listen to the parents? Because it's very rare that a mom would ever say that.
Well, you listen to some of the politicians involved and the analysts, they will tell you that the law is on the book. Well, then change the laws. Change the laws on the book.
Stop voting these people in.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Politico puts it this way. Ukrainian refugee killed in North Carolina gets dragged into political messaging war. Can you believe that?
How do you finish that sentence with that?
And Axios says stabbing video fuels MAGA's crime message.
And Charlotte leaders criticized over killing of a Ukrainian woman as Trump. MAGA target another Democratic city.
That was the AP.
Yeah, and a gruesome murder in North Carolina ignites a firestorm. This is the New York Times on the right. No, it should, in America, a firestorm in America. And I'll just bring you back to the poll last week. Over 80% of the people think crime's a major problem in America, not Republicans or Democrats. 67% or 64% of Democrats think it's a major crime. So why does the New York Times and all these other major publications feel so invested in making that a right-wing story? If they are pro-left, they would broaden this out and send a message that crime matters to all Americans, to a party that can't seem to understand that.
It doesn't matter to them, Ainsley, because when it was Daniel Penny, also on the subway,
who was defending
people,
someone.
Exactly. They gave 100 stories to that. But when it was this victim who was brutally murdered, there's only been 2 stories in the New York Times.
Now, granted, Daniel Penny's story, that covers months and months of coverage, and, you know, this other murder just happened. But if you watched the news yesterday, if you watch it this morning on another network, which we don't encourage you to do, I was watching CBS this morning, and the way that they covered it was not how his long rap sheet. They didn't cover any of that. They just said he had been arrested before on a prison sentence and he was out on a misdemeanor.
Right. And by the way, ABC, 4 minutes. NBC Nightly News, 1 minute and 50 seconds. CBS, 1 minute, 56 seconds. And I think it's very consistent with the Maryland man coverage. With the Maryland man coverage, they just talk about him, his wife being left behind. They don't show you the footage in the national coverage of him trafficking kids, other adults from the border and being pulled over and not having a license. And then they don't show you the fact that he was pursuing children online. So they don't want, that's what they edited out of Kristi Noem. So it's all together. They are desperate to save the Democratic, what they think is saving the Democratic Party and hurting the country.
President Trump was out on the streets of D.C. yesterday because he's cleaned up that city by bringing in more law enforcement so this kind of thing doesn't happen. He's going to be live on our show on Friday morning, and we'll ask him about this. He's already weighed in on this murder in North Carolina.
Just to put a bow on this, I just think from a criminal justice standpoint, we got homeless people on the street. We got mentally deranged people on the street. You got to take them off the street. You give them the option. Either you get the services that we're going to provide, but you can't be on the street. If you're mentally deranged, the evaluation has to happen. In the meantime, I'm sorry you got to be locked up if you have a violent offense against you, if you have used weapons in the past. But this whole flipping the criminal justice system to be more compassionate toward the offenders, that has to stop.
Yeah, criminal first has got to stop.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.